Hello everyone, so welcome to Camel Digital Art Workshop, and as you can see these are the 4 different artworks that we are going to create using Camel Artist watercolor cakes. So here we are going to know how watercolor works and how to use different shades to create these beautiful silhouette effects for misty forest illustration. So to begin with, we'll start with this one where we have orange shade, which is later turning into dark vibrant purple. So let's just begin with it. So here I am using Camel Artist watercolor cakes. Yeah, so these are the colors, and the one that I have right now is of 48 shades. So to begin with, we'll start with orange shade, and just for your reference I'll also keep showing you the color shade cards. Again, to create these artworks I will be using Camel Artist brushes. So the color that I'm using right now is orange. Now this paper is completely wet, and the reason why we have completely used orange shade towards the dark is so that we can blend different shades. Now again I will quickly dab my brush to purple shade and start layering the upper portion of the sky. And here again we are going to drag it towards the bottom. So here again I have dipped my brush in magenta shade, and again I'm dragging it towards the orange paint that we have done. I have just cleaned my brush, and again I am dipping it in the orange paint, and the same process we are going to move our brush towards the sky and merge it with the purple and magenta shade that we have used. So right now our base color for sky is done. I am using the same brush and we are going to dip it in ivory black. Here again we are just going to use this pen for the outline of the land that we had created, and then we'll add our trees, pine trees, to it. Now here what I will do is I will be using a smaller set of brush to create our detailed pine trees. So now here again we are just going to add the pine tree. For that, all you have to do is draw a straight line. Just add few horizontal strokes to it. Now for this I am using the tiniest brush that I had, so that your strokes are little sharper. So if you don't have any sharp brush, a tiny brush, all you can do is try to give little less pressure on the brush so that it is easier for you to add details. Now here again we are just going to add few more pine trees, and our first artwork will be so as you can see I have used very small amount of paint on my brush, and yet we could create 2 to 3 pine trees. So that is how you can use your watercolors. A little amount of them is enough for you to create an entire artwork as well. So you can use these tricks when you want to create any monochromatic artwork where you are just playing around with one shade of watercolor. And now with the same brush with little amount of black to it, we can even add birds. So since this is a snowy landscape that we are trying to create, we are not going into much more details about the grass or any other thing. We are just going to keep it simple. So this is the first one that we have done right now. So now for the second artwork, we have a very vibrant sky, which is, a hint of blue. And then for here, what I have created is a monochromatic forest, mystical forest. So these are just different shades of green that I have used right now. So now here I am using cerulean blue. Now again here, while moving towards the downward side of the paper, I am just going to dip my brush in water. And now as we are coming towards the downward side, I will quickly dip my brush in chrome green light shade and blend both these paints. Again here I am just giving few vertical strokes so that these give us a few idea of how we are going to place our pine trees ahead. Now while this green is wet, we will quickly shift to another shade of green, that is Hooker's Green Light. Now this shade number is 193 for ones who are using this same palette. And again just roughly place our forest trees. Just like before, we are going to shift to a round brush and start adding details to our painting. Now here, unlike before, what I've done is I've started painting pine trees without waiting for the paper to dry completely, so that we get that blur effect and our trees look more realistic. So for the base layer, I have used chrome green, which is the light shade of green. And now for the second layer of trees, I am using Hooker's Green. The reason why I am using a lot of water right now is because I want lighter shade of green, because we will add another layer that will be much more darker than what we have used right now. That is how you can create much better silhouette effect for your paintings. Now we are quickly going to move towards the last layer, and for that again I will be using flat brush because we need to cover major part at the bottom. Here again I'm using same shade of green, that is Hooker's Green. The only reason why it is much more darker right now is because we are using less amount of water to it. So now here I have added little bit of brown just to give more realistic effect, and drawing our last set of pine tree. If you want to add, you can even add little bit of brown to it to make it look more darker, or black. Even that can help you to create layering. Now we again move towards the next art piece. This one is much more vibrant. So the main color shades that we are going to use here will be yellow and shades of orange and pink. Try to wet your paper before adding any color to it. So this is another technique where you can easily blend your paints because the paper is already wet. I am using orange. Again, I have a lot of water and very little bit of paint to it at the bottom, and I'm going to move towards the upward direction. Now I'm switching to Indian yellow. So this is just mix of orange and lemon yellow. Now while the paper is wet, I will quickly move towards the orange shade, and this time I'm using permanent orange, which seems to be little darker than our base color orange. Now again here I'm just giving rough strokes. Now the best part is when the paper is already wet, it just spreads on the paper and gives more blurry and realistic effect to the painting. Now that this is wet, again I am just going to switch to another shade, that is Crimson Lake. Again you have to use a lot of water, otherwise this paint is going to look extremely dark, and add few strokes. You can use the same shade, that is Crimson Lake, and start creating few pine trees with a detailed version of it. And we are going to use vermilion hue, which is a mixture of orange and little bit of permanent red, you can say. So again this particular shade is very vibrant. Here I am using carmine shade, which is of 053. So if you want to add more texture to your paintings, again you can sprinkle little bit of salt on your wet paper. That also creates a very good like texture to your painting. So here again we are done with this vibrant artwork. So for now we'll just quickly move towards the monochromatic artwork that we have here, which is in the shade of blue. Now for this one I'm using cobalt blue as our base color. Again we can wet the paper before. Again here as I'm moving towards the downward side of the paper, I am keeping it more of an white shade with little tint of blue to it, because we are creating a monochromatic forest. I've switched to cerulean blue to create our first layer of pine trees. Now that this is still partly wet, I will quickly move to another shade of blue, and that is French ultramarine, and the shade number is 144. Again using a little extra water. So for watercolors, this is mostly known as wet on wet technique, where the paper is already wet and you are layering it with another shade. We are using different shades of blue, which gives more monochromatic effect to your paintings, and these can be framed and you can most probably use it as home decor as well. Again I'm just simply going to use a flat brush, dip it in our ultramarine blue and drag it in the bottom. Now for the final layer we are going to use Persian blue, that is one of the darkest shade of blues that we have in this palette. We are done with this one as well. Now again here, if you want to add few birds or any other thing that you feel like, you can do that as well. I'm using same brown brush that I have used to create these trees. And that is it. Now once you're done, just wait for the paints to dry off completely, and then you can just remove your masking tapes. I hope you've learned something from this artwork and workshop, and just make sure that you have created something. Do post it on Instagram. Do tag Camel and my account so that we can see it and we can also post it. So yes, thank you all for joining in. I really hope that you have enjoyed and keep learning new different artworks that Camel also come up with in future.